Hello, my name is Jacob Bennett, and I am presenting for the stress management class my stress theories presentation. So throughout the course of this, I'll just be giving some insight into some of the stress theories and management techniques that I found from the list that we were given to be valuable and insightful and tied together as well. So we'll go ahead and jump right in with the first one here, general adaptation syndrome. Now, this is actually a very interesting concept that was developed by a man named Hans Selye. He's an endocrinologist, and he basically gave us the foundation of understanding what happens to our bodies on a chemical level when we are presented with threats or stressors. His idea of how this came to happen, how our bodies came to react a certain way to stress, is that it was a survival technique in the early time of humans that we had to learn to be ready and aware of our situation, essentially, when we were presented with danger. So he came from a perspective of this is an evolutionary change that happened within us over time, and now we see this continue on in our biology. There's basically three stages that happen to us when we are presented with a threat or a stressor. In stage one, that's the alarm reaction, and this is when we first come in contact with something that we think might be potentially dangerous to us. Our hormones, our adrenal glands release these hormones, cortisol, which is also known as the stress hormone, and it gives us this feeling of uneasiness or nervousness as though something isn't right, that we need to be on our guard. And then we're also receiving doses of adrenaline, which makes us more alert and aware of our surroundings. It's kind of those scenarios where you'd see a person talk about maybe almost being hit by a car, things like that, and time seems to slow down. That's adrenaline kicking in, and it's making you more aware of the scenario. The second stage is resistance. Now, because your body is being pumped with these chemicals, this cortisol and this adrenaline, your body is trying to reach back towards homeostasis. It's trying to right basically what is being wronged by your adrenal glands. It wants to get back to its regular state because right now you're very jittery, you're irritable, and your heart is working a lot harder, your blood pressure increases, and your body's basically trying to cope with this change. In the third stage, if your body has spent a long time in this alarm state or fear state, you're essentially becoming exhausted as your body is trying to repair the damage that's being done by these chemicals being pumped into your body. Now, typically back in the day, this comes from our fight or flight experience. This is a useful thing for ourselves in survival in situations that are potentially dangerous to us. But as we've come into the modern age and modern society, we often find that this alarm reaction is happening when there isn't actual danger. This comes from anxieties that we deal with on a daily basis that we see as threats. Our brain sees it as much of a threat as our ancestors might see a lion. So we find ourselves exposed to these stress hormones for long periods of time because the fear of not being able to pay your bills or hoping that you pass your exams, those go on for a long period of time. And our bodies weren't designed to handle these chemicals for long periods of time. And that's why stress can be very detrimental. So when we talk about threats or dangers to ourselves, what we mean by that actually is anything that interferes with our needs. Now, a man named Abraham Maslow actually broke down for us the hierarchy or the levels of needs that a human being has, and ultimately the goals that we're trying to achieve. Our motivation as humans, as he believes, is that we're trying to really reach a level of self-actualization or achieving one's full potential. And this is in life, this is in relationships, this is in business, in your professional career, reaching that peace, the feeling that you've gotten to the top, as I'm sure we've all felt that drive to do. But essentially, stressors that come into our life are things that interfere with these needs or our ability to gain these needs. And it can start as low as some of these more base desires or base needs that everyone needs, like the physiological, as we can see at the bottom of this pyramid on the left-hand side. Things like food, water. If we don't have easy access or reliable access to those, or say things like shelter or warmth, though that causes stress on us because our basic survival is in danger. But as we secure these needs and those become less threatened, as most people in the modern world have these in abundance, we start to focus on other higher needs on a more psychological level. Things like intimate relationships, maintaining friendships, familial bonds, and within ourselves, our own self-esteem, our appreciation for ourselves, or the achievement that we feel in life, or recognition by our peers. These things are treated the same as any other need, like food or water. If we have blockers or we have obstacles that are keeping us from achieving those, that causes stress, that causes anxiety, that causes worry in us, that we won't be able to get the things that we need. The same as we would need a safe place to sleep and water, we need to feel feelings of love and appreciation and self-esteem and self-worth as well. And Maslow's idea basically was that all these are treated the same. They're all reaching towards the top of this self-actualization, but you need to secure these needs to whatever level is, it varies from person to person, but essentially stress interferes with the gain of these needs. Stress isn't always a bad thing, though. According to the Yerkes-Dodson Law, we actually have this space where arousal can actually stimulate performance and create better performances from people. The best way you can think of it is maybe someone is performing in a concert or something, and before they get on stage, they're very nervous, very jittery, maybe they even throw up. But once they get on stage, everything becomes focused and becomes clear, and they're able to play to the best of their ability. This is sort of something that we'll go into a little bit later as well with some of these other topics, but it's this flow state. It's finding this balance between anxiety and boredom, as you can see on that chart on the left bottom quarter. Basically, we are able to achieve our best work when we have sufficient level of challenge and sufficient level of skill to meet that challenge. And the Yerkes-Dodson Law plays on this. As long as we have sufficient arousal and interest in what we're doing, i.e. challenge, and we have sufficient skill to overcome it, then we find ourselves losing ourselves in that task. And we're able to actually deal with stress in these levels and accommodate it in a healthy way, and it allows us to exceed. On the other side of that coin, though, there is, of course, the detrimental sides of stress. And the guilt and worry theory actually does teach us a lot. Wayne Dyer actually came up with this idea himself of kind of two sides of the same coin that involve stress. Guilt refers to our own feelings of not being able to have avoided situations. We blame ourselves for things that we've done in the past or things we couldn't avoid in the past. And that causes us to feel stress at things that we can't change anymore. And then worry reflects on things that are to come. That's our anxiety, our fear of things in the future that are beyond our control. We try to influence the present so that we don't have things to worry about in the future, but the truth is we don't know what the future holds, so it's almost a constant source of anxiety for people. So we actually have to constantly ask ourselves these questions of, how am I feeling right now? What is my confidence level? What are we blaming ourselves for? And how prepared do we feel to meet these upcoming challenges? We need to be able to challenge these negative thoughts that we're having. And in observing them, we're able to start to take action against them. We're able to use rationality and logic to say, what is our part in our future? What is actually within our control? And if it is not something that we can actively control, then we should learn to ease back and not be so fearful of it, and ultimately accept what we can do in the present moment. And this leads into one of my actually favorite models that we've actually covered more recently, which is the positive psychology model. This was something that was worked on by a psychologist by the name of Martin Seligman. And his theory was basically around that our mental health and our behaviors are impacted by our perception, the way that we view our circumstances and ourselves. The more negative thoughts that we have, the more damage it can have to our emotions, of course. And this is something that's actually something that humans lean more towards. We tend to be more negative, and we tend to hold on to negative aspects and negative memories more than positive ones. So we have to take an active effort in order to be positive. If you're not making a conscious effort, then you're losing out on the benefits of positive psychology. And Seligman's model for positivity in life is based off of the PERMA system. And listed below, we can see an order. It starts with positive emotions, feeling good in general. It opens up our capacity for creativity and for our own self-growth. Engagement, when we're able to be in a space, the flow that I was mentioning before, this is also something that shows up here. When we're being stimulated and we're able to do work that is sufficiently challenging, but we're also able to achieve success in it, then we find ourselves losing ourselves in the work, and we have a positive experience with the work that we're doing. In our relationships, being able to connect with others and feel part of a community, it nurtures us, because humans are designed to be a part of groups. We're herd animals. We're not meant to be alone. So building those connections really feeds into our need of belonging, which is something that Maslow spoke on. Meaning is the exploration of something deeper in our life, a drive within us to create purpose. This also relates back to Maslow's hierarchy within self-actualization, that drive within you to achieve your full potential. Being able to head towards that meaning creates a positive spark in your life. And then lastly, accomplishments. When people are able to experience the achievement of goals, then they're able to feel a constant stream of satisfaction. And that's why it's important to set short-term goals for yourself that are easily achievable, just as much it is to set stretch goals and farther out goals. Even if it's just make your bed every day, or make sure to try your best at work to hit a certain quota or something of that nature. It's creating those small wins that build up over time, and it builds your self-esteem. But really, all of these come together to say that stress is defined as threats or dangers that would interrupt with our needs. In today's society, our needs are mainly focused on the psychological. So we don't recognize that these are threats to us. We don't really fully understand that stress is our reaction to not having something that we need. We don't think of belonging or relationships or achievement as needs the same way we do food or water, but they really are, because our body is reacting the same way when we don't get them. It's creating cortisol, it's creating adrenaline that damages our bodies over time. It reduces our lifespan. It hurts your heart. It leads to having cortisol in your blood, leads to more chance of heart disease, and damages your body. So really, what we want to do is take more looks at fulfilling our needs in a positive way and trying to achieve a state of flow in life, so that we're doing work that we have purpose in, that we're challenged by, and we can achieve that. And that is everything for my presentation, so I definitely do hope that you did enjoy it. And yes, thank you so much for your time.